Hello and good afternoon, and welcome to this video tutorial on Linux man pages. And we're actually going to be taking a look at a lot more than just the man pages. So we're going to take a look at the KDE Help Center, we're going to take a look at the Pinfo utility, and we're also going to take a look at the Pinfo, and that's Pinfo utility, which you'll find on your Red Hat Fedora installs, as well as this CentOS, and this is a CentOS 7.0 install that I'm running right now. And so let's go ahead and dive in. So if you were to type man space man, you're going to be introduced to an extremely terse introduction to what the man pages are. So typically at the very beginning of the man page, you'll find a synopsis of all of the different options that you can use and what those options in terms of the ordering should be. So, and then here's your basic description. So the next section is usually a description, and so this is going to tell you that man is the system's manual pager, and then it's going to tell you about the section numbers. So if you're a new Unix user, chances are you're going to be spending the majority of your time in section 1, which are the executable programs or the shell commands. And again, this will go on for quite some time, giving you all kinds of information about the man page command. So if I were to type man space, and I'll say tar for tape archive, this is going to give me the man page information about the tar utility. And you'll notice that this is one of the few man pages, I shouldn't say one of the few, but one of the man pages that will actually give you some examples, right? So if I wanted to tar up my file, let's say my files in my home directory, and put it in archive.tar, I could use the -cf. Now, to find out what these options stand for, if you look up here, it actually doesn't give you that information. So it just simply says tar options and then file. So these are my options. So options are typically preceded by a minus sign, right? And with the tar utility, it kind of varies, but as you can see here, we've got a minus sign, or tar-tvf or tar-xf. And so, as you can see, we've got different options that have been grouped together, the T, the V, and the F. And the thing to remember is that these are individual options. So I could have said tar-x space -f, but it doesn't make sense to add this in and to add an extra dash and then an extra space right here, right? So just put them together and you can say tar-xf. Now, if I want to find out what these mean, if I hit the enter or the return key on my keyboard, and let me first clear the screen here. If I hit the enter key on my keyboard, you'll notice I'm going down one line at a time. And so here's the defaults, and it gives you some information about what it defaults to for the tar installation. But then we get into the main operation mode. So now we're going to find out what those options actually mean. And you can see here we've got two ways to represent the options. We have the short way, which is the -c, and then we have sort of the longhand method, which is the --create. And you can see here -d or --diff or --compare. So find differences between archive and the file system. And then again, it lists out the rest of the options. So what did we see? We saw a C, V, F, and so let's keep coming down. So here's X is for extract, and now it comes into some common options. So the -f is the short way to say this is the file, right? Or use archive file or device archive, right? So what file are we going to be using to archive? If I wanted to bzip to the file upon creation, I could use the -j. And again, I can mix and match these options together. The -v is always a nice one to have for verbose. If I wanted to gzip my file, I could squeeze in that -z and use that as well. right? And so let's go ahead now, and if I hit the up arrow, right, I'm just hitting the arrow keys here. So I'm hitting the up arrow, and you'll notice that moves me up, the down arrow moves me down, and let's come back up to where we had some examples. So as you can see here, this is one of the nicely formatted man pages where it gives you some examples right up front if you wanted to create an archive. So let's go ahead and take advantage of, let's take a look for the bzip2 command. We wanted to use a -J. So if I were to type tar, and I'm going to create, and I want to see verbose, and I'm going to give it a file name, and I want it to be bzip2, I could say archive.tar.bz2, right? And then if I put a period, that's going to mean my current working directory. So when I hit enter, you can see what's going to happen here is it's going to give me the verbose output, and this is the -V. This is what the V is giving me, is it's giving me this verbose output of every single file that's being added to the tape archive or to the tar file. The -F allowed me to put the file name in there. The C was for the create, and let's see when we get down to the end here if we end up with our tar file already bzipped for us or compressed and ready to go. We've got some pretty large files in here. We're going to allow this to continue. This should wrap up here any second now. And those files that you're looking at, those are some pretty large files there. And there's a previously tarred and gzipped home.dir file. And we should get an error. And it says file changed as we read it because it's not going to tar up itself. So if I were to type ls now, we should have a file with the name, and there it is, archive.tar.bz2, right? And so that's the file that was created. So let's go back to the man page for tar. And that's kind of how you read the man pages. Now, if I wanted to use the help option, I could say tar -- help. And so this is another way to get information in sort of a less verbose format. However, you'll notice that, and where did we run that? Let me roll back here. You'll notice that what it does is it kind of cuts out, and we went quite a ways here. So it kind of cuts out all of the explanation and the description above and gives you some, again, additional examples, right? And then the main operation mode. So this is really just listing out a lot of the different options that we can use with the tar command, giving us a little more information. So that's a second way that you can get information about a command. A third way, and this is interesting, right, is the info utility is going to give you more complete as well as up-to-date information specifically on GNU utilities, right, or GNU utilities. And so what do I mean by that? So if I were to say man SCP, right, so SCP falls under here the BSD general commands because SCP is not a GNU utility, right? It's not a utility that was created by the GNU software project, right, or the GNU core utils setup. So it's simply BSD. So if I were to type info SCP, what do you notice? You'll notice that the info utility is literally showing us the same information that we were looking at in the man pages, right? You can see right here where it says info and the asterisk man pages. Okay, so if it's a GNU utility, you're going to get more information, more usable information, as well as more up-to-date information than you would if you use the info utility for a utility that is not a GNU utility. And so how can I tell? So when I type man, when I type man tar, what's different about this? You notice, number one, it doesn't say BSD at the top. And if you come down, you can see that it's copyright Free Software Foundation, right? License GPL v3. GNU GPL version, right, 3 or later. Okay, so right away you can tell toward the bottom with the copyright that this is a GNU utility. When we did man SCP and I roll all the way to the end, right, there is no announcement about the GPL v3 or anything to do with the GNU Foundation, because again, this is not a native GNU utility. And so let's go ahead now and let's type, if we do man tar, just to take one more look at that. So again, you've got the name and the synopsis, you've got your description, we've got examples, some defaults, right? And then we jump into the main operation mode commands. So if I type info tar, you'll notice that this is very, very different from the man page. And so I'm going to be using the down arrow here. You can see my cursor right up here at the top left. So I'm using the down arrow to navigate my way through this. And you're going to see here that I end up with quite a bit more information. Right now we've got the synopsis information. Now it drops me into section 3.1. If I wanted to go back, just hit the up arrow, right? And so here's what we're going to talk about. That was the menu piece. Now we're going to go into the synopsis piece. So here we go. And it gives you much more information. But again, very important to remember that the info utility is going to give you different information about GNU utilities than you're going to see in the man pages, and it's better information, more complete, more up to date. And again, if it's not a GNU utility, don't expect to see anything different than what you're actually seeing in the man pages, right? And so as we just continue to scroll down here, it talks about the exit status, right? 0, 1, and 2. And now we get into using tar options, right? So tar has a total of 8 operating modes. And again, you can see here that this is far more comprehensive than the man pages, right? The 3 option styles. Okay, so now how do I get out of here? I simply hit Q. It's the same thing. When I type man tar, if I want to go a page at a time, a screen full at a time, I hit the space bar, right? If I want to go a line at a time, I can hit the down arrow, or I can just hit the enter key, right? And when I'm done and I find that, I wanted to know what the option was for gzip, to have the tar file gzipped right away, I can see it right there. All right, so now we've looked at the man pages. We looked at the -- help, and you'll find -- help is pretty much universal. So if I were to say who -- help, right, it's going to give me all of the information in terms of options for the who command. And then it gives you a brief little synopsis. Now you'll notice it says it's part of the GNU core utils, or the online help here. So let's see. Very easy way to tell is if I type info who, does that look like the man page? So let's say man who, right? So here we go. Who, show who's logged on, synopsis, right? And then some, not some examples, but some options you can use, -A, -B, -D. So then we end up with some different information, and you can see copyright free software foundation. So if I type in info, and I just type C there, I have an alias to clear my screen. So if I typed in info who, you've got it. I'm going to end up with a far more verbose set of information that's going to tell me all about the different options. And let's see if this is far more comprehensive than the man pages. And let's go down here. And so this is just part of the core utils, right? And the core utils are like the set of utilities that are considered, quote unquote, the core for the GNU Foundation, the Free Software Foundation, and the GNU utilities, right? So date, who, and core because they're all of these common utilities that you run across, right? So that's the info pages. Now, what you can also do, and I'm on, again, CentOS 7, if you launch, and this is KDE as my window, if I just type in help and hit enter, right, you see the little life preserver pops up, and it's going to bounce here, and it's going to pull up a GUI window for me. So if you did have access to the GUI, you can get to the Unix man pages. And this is pretty nice, right? It breaks it down. You can actually select by section of the man pages, and I'll hit user commands, and this is where new users and new learners spend most of their time. And here you go. So it's going to give me a list of all of the quote-unquote user commands if I want to search, which I do, and I'll type in tar. And now I'm thinking that that might not have been the best command. Let's type in SCP. So I'll type in SCP. There we go. So secure copy, right? Remote file copy program, and I can then click on it, and it's going to give me the man page. So if you had access to the GUI, and this is another way to get to some help for the utilities on the Linux operating system. Now, if you wanted to dig a little deeper or get additional information about some of the utilities, there are some fantastic resources on the web. You can see here, I literally Googled Linux in a nutshell. The O'Reilly books are, by and large, some of the best textbooks or the best reference books that are out there on the market. So we were just looking at SCP. So let me go to, I believe if I've got this right, it was 402. And so basically the Linux in a nutshell is kind of like the man pages. However, oftentimes they're always going to give you some kind of an example here, right? Maybe a different definition, but you usually end up with some sort of an example. So if I were to come over here to the man pages and say man SCP, right, gives me the description, tells me what's going on, and then I get some options here. So let's try some of these options. If I were to say SCP, and we're going to try to I'll tell you, we'll use SCP, we'll use -1 for version 1 of SSH. So we're going to see what happens if we try to use version 1. And I'm going to say I want the etc host file to be copied to tpbonfiatvader.aacc.edu, and we'll put it in temp. And so you can see what we get right away here is protocol major versions differ. So I'm trying to use forcing version 1, but it's expecting version 2. So then maybe I want to take a look at the man page again to say, okay, well, what are my options here? So forces SCP to use protocol 2, right? I could force it to use IPv4 addresses only. And one of the best options with this command is the verbose mode, right? Causes SCP and SSH to print debugging messages. So let's rerun that again with the -1, and then I'm going to put a V for verbose. And you can see here, it's basically equivalent to when you're doing a debug on the Cisco platform. So I'm going to get some very verbose information, and it says connecting to vader.aacc.edu. I get the IP address and the port, connection established, but then what happens? Remote protocol is version 2, right? And that's the remote version of software, OpenSSH 4.3, that's being used. However, I can try to match that, but I'm forcing protocol version 1 as opposed to version 2, because here is my version. I'm using OpenSSH 6.4, right? And this version is a little older. Okay, the version that they're running, which is 4.3. Okay, but again, -V is going to give me that verbose information, and that is how, when you look at the man pages, to simply take some of those options and test. And as you can see over here, it gives you an example of how to use the command. So let's go ahead and take a look at some other utilities that might give us some additional information. And again, I'm going to refer to a text. I just simply did a search on Unix Power Tools, and these are both PDFs that are out there, and it looks like you can download them. And so this is literally almost 1,000 pages of some extremely good information about a lot of the Linux commands. Now, the Unix Power Tools book is a massive book. As you can see here, 1,805 pages. And this is the, actually it says 1,120 pages. I'm seeing 1,800 up here. But it's from 97, but it's still a very excellent resource. So again, if you wanted to see some options, so let's do this. Let's go to, I don't want to do job control. How about shell prompt, right? So you want to change your prompt, right? So it's going to be tough to find or I shouldn't say tough, but a little difficult to find information and examples on how to set your prompt. And this is a seashell example here. And I'm not interested in the seashell. We got a lot of seashell information here. And I'm looking for something bash or born, and it looks like we may not get it. Yeah, this is a lot of seashell. So seashell not too popular anymore. Let's see what else they've got. But again, another good resource, and as you can see, they give you lots and lots of examples, right, all throughout the text. So, but back to the command line, if you're stuck with the man pages, the best thing to do is to take a look at the man page, and let's say we're looking for the copy command, CP. So I'd say man CP, and to kind of look through and see, okay, which options might I want to use, right? -F for force, and there's an R down here in a second for recursive, and there we go. Like if you want to copy directories recursively, and again, if you shoot all the way to the bottom and you see that copyright where it's a GPL v3 with the Free Software Foundation, if I type in info CP, this is definitely core util, you can see here we're probably going to get a little more up-to-date and a little more verbose information that we can read through, again, to kind of learn about the command, how we might want to use the command, and then some examples that are usually, pretty common, pretty simple examples. And if all else fails, you can always go out and, if you have access, do a Google search. Take a look and see, what other people are doing. So if I were to say google.com and I wanted to know how to use copy command Linux directories, and let's see what we get. Right, so Linux and Unix copy command, help and examples. So you can drop in, and you'll find all kinds of examples that are on the internet. And again, just another resource that you can access. At the end of the day, though, if you don't have access to the internet, and maybe let's say you're up in the data center, you don't have internet access, you don't have your phone or whatever, the man pages or the info pages, right, are a great source of information on how to run commands. Now, the last utility that I want to talk about is very, very nice if it's installed. If you don't have it installed, you would want to go to the add remove software window, or do a yum update or a yum install of the Pinfo package. It's Pinfo. So if I were to type man Pinfo, it's going to tell you it's a curses-based links style info browser, right? It's for viewing info files. You tell it the page that you want, right? If we want to give it some options, we can do that. As you can see here, it does take a few options. We can cut man headers out, so it gets rid of the man headers. And let's go ahead and take a look at this, because this is a really nice utility. So I'm going to say pinfo tar, right? And all I'm doing here is the down arrow. And you can see it's showing me at the very bottom, it says, where it's highlighted in blue, viewing line 27, so I know what percentage of the way through the document. And so here's what's nice. So you see this? How it's changing colors there. Like I'm on introduction, it's orange or kind of a salmon color. Tutorial, tar invocation, operations, backup, choosing. So let's scroll down a little further. So all of these things, right? The first part of this master menu lists the major nodes in this info document. The rest of the menu lists all the lower level modes. So if I was curious, I want a tutorial on tar. So I would down arrow to tutorial, hit the enter key, and it says this chapter guides you through some basic examples of 3 tar operations: create, list, and extract. So then I make my way down, right? And you've got the basic tar operations. So create, I hit enter. So one of the basic operations of tar is -- create, which you use to create a tar archive. So they're going to explain this, and again, it literally will walk you through the command. So then if I wanted to create with verbose, I could hit enter, and this shows me how to make that happen. And if I wanted to go back, I just simply hit the B button, right? I'm hitting the letter B on the keyboard, and you see how it's moving me back? And now we're back here to where we initially started out looking at the tar command. If I'm interested in the tar internals, I hit enter. And let's say I'm interested in standard, right? And then I can sit and read about these different features and feature sets within the tar utility. Again, hit the letter B, and it's going to jump me back, and there we are. If I hit B again, you can see it drops me out to the core utils area. So if I wanted to learn about gzip, I just down arrow my way down here, hit the enter key, right? This is the manual for GNU gzip. Come down, environment, advanced usage, invoking gzip, sample. I want to see a sample. So I hit enter. And this talks about the options, right? And there's your example right here, gzip-v textinfo.txt. So it's telling you to do how to do the verbose mode to zip or compress that file. And so this pinfo utility is an amazing utility, right? And if you get to the end and there's nowhere else to go, I'm 52 out of 52, I hit the B button and it just moves me back. And then the B button, and I don't want to see samples anymore. Now I want to see some advanced usage. And I hit enter. And there you go. So there's how you can compress the file and then redirect the output using the -C option. And then it tells you that that's equivalent to cat file 1, file 2. So again, there are a multitude of ways to get information. Some a little more clear than others, right? The man page is a little terse. It throws a whole lot of options at you. And in some instances, and I'm trying to remember, how about some of them don't actually give you a very good set of examples. And I can't think of one off the top of my head right now, but how about man, maybe it's man who. And let's see, do they give you any samples? It really is. So, man who really doesn't give you a whole lot of information. But when you look here, right, it says see also. So the full documentation for who is maintained as a text info manual. If the info and who programs are properly installed at your site, this command, info core utils, and we don't even have to do that much. Remember, if I were to say info who, then I'm right here, and I'm in that help page that they're talking about. I'm going to have to scroll down to get to the invocation, but if you type pinfo who, it's even better. And so we end up with some additional information here. And actually, this one is a little sparse in terms of what I was anticipating, and doesn't give you much more than the man pages, right? So if we were to type in, if I did the man who again and shot to the bottom, if I were to copy this, let's see, and let's paste that in here. And we would get here via the info anyway, but this kind of dumps us into the invocation. But again, not much more information. So the who is maybe not the best example. And here are some other core utilities, right? Date invocation. So I hit enter and it takes me here. And if I just wanted to scroll back up, I just keep scrolling up with the arrow key and it's going to move me back. So this is not pinfo here, right? So if I typed in pinfo date, let's see if we get anything. No, so pinfo date is just showing me the man page. So when you see this and it looks just like the man page, chances are there's not additional information for me. But if I typed in pinfo and tar, like we had before, you can clearly see very different. I can highlight some things here. So let's look at formats, hit enter. It's going to talk about different formats that I can use. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up, and hopefully this video is going to be of some assistance to you, and actually was a request from a learner for a course that I had taught a couple months ago that's now was a live stream, but now at the time we didn't actually have a ton of time to spend on a lot of the man pages and a lot of the help features, I should say. So I wanted to make sure that we did sort of like a little supplement here to hopefully help any learners who are out there that, you get on the Linux system and, okay, well, now what do I do? Where do I find help? How do I find out what these utilities can do, and what are the different ways? And so to kind of close it out, we talked about the KDE Help Center, which is where I come down here. If I want to snag the GUI, I just simply type in help, and we're going to end up with the little life life preserver thing, and you just click on man pages, and as a new user you're probably going to spend the majority of your time here in user commands, and then we can just search through those user commands. So if I'm interested in let's see, SCP, I think that was a good one. There we go. And that'll give me the man page, right? And maybe it's a little easier for you here instead of trying to work your way through the command line. However, if you don't have access to the GUI, you're going to be forced to come in and take a look at the man page. But as we just talked about, we've got the man pages, right? We've got the info pages, which give us more information about the utilities. We've got the Pinfo pages, which, again, as you can see here, I really like these because, you know, I can roll down here and say, okay, you know, give me a tutorial, right? I want a tutorial on tar. So then you can sit here and read through the tutorial. You can take a look at the assumptions, right? And this is sort of the online version of the Cisco config guides or the Cisco command guides, where there's not necessarily a printed format, but it's here online for you to take a look at. And then finally, we looked at, you know, if you don't want to look through all of the gibberish on the man pages, like the description for tar, the synopsis, you know, and some different information that may get in the way, you can simply type tar, and with pretty much any utility, that -- help is going to give you a list, and I probably want to pipe that, at least with tar, pipe it through more so I can control, right? So, and now I'm hitting enter, and it really kind of gives me a condensed version of the man page. I'm getting to see a little better definition. It's showing me the options, overwrite control, right? Handling file attributes. So it kind of walks you through. It's sort of a compressed version of the man page without the header information in there. And then, again, the last one that we took a look at, which is a really good one, is the Pinfo, right? If you have an opportunity, you can, you know, and this is a fantastic resource, this Linux in a Nutshell book, and it's far more than just simply sort of a regurgitation of the man pages. And then we also took a look at the O'Reilly, and let's see where this is at here. This may take a while because it's almost 1,800 pages. So, but again, and we took a look at the O'Reilly Unix power tools, and those go through and give you, you know, some of the corner case type syntax and commands and examples of how you can use commands and, you know, combine commands together to accomplish tasks. All right. So this is going to wrap up this video tutorial on how to get the most out of not just the man pages, but all of the utilities, or I should say a lot of the utilities, the most popular utilities that are out there on the Linux operating system. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this video and have a great weekend.